another shotgun mic from Hi. Rode advertised the NTG4 as a broadcast sound quality type of microphone. They say that it has low noise circuitry inside, it's got a rugged metal construction, convenient digital switching, which includes a high frequency boost, a high pass filter which gives you a roll off from 75 Hz down, a 10 dB pad, and if you register your microphone online you get a 10-year extended warranty, which is really good. In the box you get the NTG4, an RM5 mic clip, a padded zip pouch, a foam windshield. If you want a furry one you have to buy that one separately. The only thing it doesn't come with is this shock mount, which I bought separately, and this is really very good. It's also not actually that cheap, but it's very good. Now this is described as a line gradient mic, and what that actually means is that it's got an interference tube on the front. So the capsule is at the back end of the microphone and this is the interference tube here with all the slats. The NTG5 has little round holes. This one actually has the more normal slats to reject sound from the sides. Inside there's a 1/2-inch capsule. It has a supercardioid polar pattern. Its frequency range is quoted as 20 Hz to 20 kHz, although you've got that high pass filter at 75 to roll off right down below. An output impedance of 200 ohms. Maximum SPL is 135 dB, so that's pretty loud. A sensitivity of -32 dB, so it's got sensitivity of -32 and an output impedance of 200 ohms. So it's a fairly sensitive microphone, but it's not as sensitive as the NTG5. It has a self noise figure of 16 dBA. It has 3 power options, but no battery option. So it can take 12 volts, 24 or 48 volts phantom power. Now the lower voltages, I can get 24 on my Tascam preamp, but I haven't got 12. But the handy thing about having those lower voltages is that if you're running on batteries to run your preamp, obviously if you're running at 12 volts, your preamp's going to go on for a little bit longer. Looking at the frequency response graph, it's got a slight dip from 100 down. It's just slightly lower down at that bottom end. So it looks like it's been tailored actually. Then there's a slight raise in the mids to bring out the mid sounds, which is a good thing. Then there's a curious thing in the treble. I'm looking at it now. There's a little bit of a tiny little peak at about 1, 2, 3, 4.5 kilohertz. There's a little peak. Then it takes a dip and then it comes up again and rises just past 10 kilohertz. So it's got a presence peak right at the very top. But there's a little curious wiggle right up there, around about 4 or 5 kilohertz. 2, 3, yeah, about 4 to 5 kilohertz. A little bit of a wiggle. But the sound of this is actually pretty good. So let's see what it sounds like. This is the sound of the Rode NTG4 in a normal type of front room. I'm not in a treated room whatsoever. Behind me is a wall which could reflect a lot of sound, so this is pointing down at my body slightly to hopefully shield that. Bare walls around me, but they're far enough away hopefully to be of not too much consequence with a shotgun microphone, and hopefully you're getting nice clean speech. So this is the sound that you get from the front of this microphone in a room, not a treated room, just a normal type of room. If I move to 45 degrees, what I'm hoping is that the sound, or the timbre, the actual sound, remains the same. It might be slightly lower in volume, but hopefully remains the same. A little bit more body perhaps comes back now because I'm on the front, and back to 45 degrees on the other side. So if I move between the 45 degree and the front, now you'll hear that the sound might be changing, and this one actually I think is slightly tighter with its polar pattern than the NTG5. The NTG5 is useful when you're interviewing or you're recording 2 people, because it will pick them up. This one might be slightly tighter as I'm moving, and now I'm moving over to 60 degrees, which is even further, and it might be dropping off a little bit more. But what I'm hoping is that the timbre of the microphone remains about the same when I'm going from left to right. By timbre, I mean the tone, the sound of the microphone, although it might be dropping off. Sometimes the bass starts to drop off on the sides. That's the only thing that can happen. The bass starts to drop away. So I'm back to the front again. Now, if I go to the sides, this is the sound of the microphone from the side. And again, I'm still hoping that the timbre remains mostly intact, and maybe some of the bass has come down. But when you get to the back end, the bass slightly raises slightly. It just goes up a little bit, because what happens is this rejects treble sounds quite well, but bass sounds probably not so well, and also it's probably picking up reflections from the wall that the microphone is now almost pointing at. I'm pointing it down at the carpet actually, but it will be picking up probably some of the wall. Back to the side again, and now I'm back to the front. So that's the sound of this microphone. It also comes with a foamy, and this is quite substantial actually. It's a rather nice foamy. It's a really substantial thing. So I'm going to try it with the foamy now. So here's a funny noise. That's the sound of the microphone with the foamy. Once this is on, you don't have to worry too much about plosives, because this thing is actually quite substantial, and hopefully it's not affecting the sound of the microphone too much. So I'm going to take it off again, so a bit more noise. Try to do it quickly so it's not too bad. Now this microphone is a little better equipped for being used with, say, things like cameras, because it's got adjustments on it that the NTG4 doesn't have. And that makes it very, very useful for camera stuff, although it's got a higher noise floor. So first of all, if you're using a windbreak or something like that, it might take the treble content down, and this one has a switch that raises the top a little bit. So if I switch it in, right, I think I've done the right one. Yeah, I've done the right one. This is the switch that raises the treble slightly. So if you're using a dead cat, for instance, and it's taking the top edge down, you can switch that in to compensate. I would actually, when I use that, I would actually have a listen first though, before I actually commit myself to doing that and making sure that it sounds okay, because it can go a little bit peaky and trebly. Turning it off again, we're back to normal. Now the other thing you get when you're moving around is you can get rumbles from traffic, things going past, fridges, whatever in the house. So this one has a bass cut, or what's called a high pass filter. If I switch that in, this is without the high pass filter, and now this is with the high pass filter, so you can hear hopefully some of the rumble maybe is missing from my voice and perhaps around me, because this house is quite rumbly, I think. So if I switch it back on, that's turned off, sorry, not on. So now I'm back to the standard sound of the microphone. Now the other thing is not only can you have the bass cut in, but you can have the treble boost in, so you can almost tailor the sound to be quite trebly. So if I switch, that's the treble boost, and that is the bass cut. So now it may have gone a little bit thinner sounding, but you know, that might help with clarity in certain situations, especially if you've got a wind cover on that really does muffle the sound. So if I go back to normal again, you can hear that this thing sounds like that, normal. And not only that, if you get really loud sounds, you can even switch in a 10 dB attenuator, so it goes down by minus 10 dB. So you can have loud sounds going into this without distorting too much. Go back again, and that's the sound back to normal. So this has quite a lot on it, really. So in relation to the NTG1 and 2, this has a lot more going for it with regards to video, because there is also a battery operated one, which is called the NTG4 Plus. That has a lithium battery inside. You just charge it up. You don't even need phantom power, which makes it ideal for moving around if you want to use a shotgun microphone while you're filming. So these are really, really useful for those occasions. And when you're out and about, that noise floor, although it's slightly higher now than the NTG5 or the NTG3, and when you're outdoors, that's going to be insignificant, to be honest. And at the moment, you're hearing it in a normal front room with noises around. I've got a fan going on the light there, so you might be able to hear the fan, but this is what you would get. And the noise floor is perfectly low enough to be usable, and certainly outside, absolutely fine. So these microphones, the NTG4 and the NTG4 Plus, which is the same thing with the battery, are really, really good for, I think, for filming if you want to use a shotgun microphone while on the move. Really, really very nice. I hope this video was useful for you if you're thinking about the Rode NTG3, 4, 5, 1, 2, whatever. The numbers are very confusing. The top two are the 3 and the 5. The 4 and 4 Plus come next, and then the 1 and 2. That's the sort of order, if you like, in terms of quality, but it can be quite confusing, and it can be quite difficult to choose a shotgun mic from Rode, because there's quite a choice, isn't there, really? Hope this was useful, and I hope to see you next time. Cheers for now.